All right, this tutorial is going to be a little bit more advanced than we usually see, but it's still super duper easy. The point of this one is how to move multiple objects at the same time and still have them doing different things, yet in a coordinated manner, right? So in this case, what we have is we have the screen moving in and the fragments of the canvas are following it, and then everything is sort of assembles at the same time. If I pull this out, it's going to be really obvious. You see they're still moving. The fragments are moving along with the canvas as it's falling into position. Got that? So that's what we're going to do. The project you're going to open up is called Multi-Object Parenting Start. Multi-Object Parenting Start. Okay, so open that one up. And there you go. So at this point now, you'll see what we have is we have a canvas track, which is the centerpiece. And if we switch to wireframe, you see it's not fragmented. There's just one big piece for that. We also have a frame track, which is the frame around there. Those guys are going to be moving independently. And then we have a null. Now this is the trick that we need to do. So let me show you how to actually make the null. We're going to delete this track. And so you start off with these guys and you say, okay, I want one to slide into the next, but then I want them both to move on screen at the same time. So here's how we do this. You come down here and you either click this button, which will create a null for you, or you go up to Object and you do Create Null. Okay. Now when you do this, you'll get this little red crosshair. That's the null. There's nothing else in it. It's just it. And to make this easy, we're going to pull this up to the top. But you don't have to do that. Of course, it could be anywhere in the scene. So let's see. Double click null track. There we go. Now, what we do next is we're going to parent these two objects to the null, and that way the null will be able to move the objects around at the same time. Right now, you see, if you move the null, let me select it so you can see that little red crosshair right there. If we move it around, you see it's moving, but nothing else is moving along with it. Undo. So what we're going to do is this. You select Oppose. Don't just select the track, but select Oppose. And then you come down into the animation controls, and where it says No Parent, you change that to Null 1. Okay, so now that just moved it. So I'm sorry, it didn't move it, it parented it. So now you see we're moving the null. See how the null is selected? We're moving the null around, but then it's also going to be carrying the canvas along with it too. Undo, undo twice. Now we're going to do the same thing with the frame track. So we select that, come down here and go to null track, null number 1, like that. And now when we go back to our null track, you see it's moving both the canvas and the frame along at the same time. So this gives us sort of like one extra motion that we can throw into things. Undo. And now we can animate the null and the canvas and the frame all separately, and yet they'll all move together at the same time. So in a coordinated way. So here's what we're going to do. Let's set up the animation itself. So we're going to take this and let's just slide it off screen and then double click to get a new pose and slide this back on screen. About like that. Okay, so you can see that ends up back at 0. Now to make it a little more interesting, let's select the transition and add an arch to it, and we'll overshoot the arch a little bit. We'll overshoot the end, and now you see it's going to be sliding up and then sliding down. Let's push the arch back. Let's rotate the direction of the arch about like that. And that way you see when it's moving in, it's sort of back and then it comes forward. Okay, so that should make it a little bit interesting. And you see both those are moving at the same time, and we're animating the null. Got it? We're not actually animating the canvas or the frame, just that little null is carrying those guys along. So very good. So that would set up. Now let's animate the canvas. Now, if I select the canvas, and I'm going to switch to user camera so that you can see what's going on here. If I zoom out, you see there it is. It's off screen a little bit. Okay, now if I select the canvas and just move it up, you see all on its own, I can now move the canvas independently. If I leave it there, you see it's going to stick for the whole rest of the animation. Okay, so I need to set up an animation for the canvas too. We do that by double clicking to get another pose, and at this point we can bring this back to 0, and now you see it's sliding down into position. Starts high and low, and then it moves down into position, and we end up with an animation that looks like this. So there it is, it's just sliding into position. Great. Okay, the basic animation is done at this point. You've got the poses, you've got the transition. All you need now is to increase the quality, add more stuff to it to make it look extra cool. And here's how we're going to do that. Let's go back to user camera, go back to our original pose, and when we're right here with this canvas, we can maybe let's push it way back. So now as it's coming forward, you see it's moving forward as well. And then we could also fragment this too. So with this pose selected, you come down and click on the little fragment tool, and you can pick a preset if you want to just mess around with it, but we want really nice straight lines. So I'm going to click on the options and show you how to build this. We don't need fracture 3 or 2. We just need fracture 1, and click on vertical slice. Pick vertical slice and it'll set everything else up for you, and then you can give it a number of slices. So 5 slices is going to give us 6 pieces. So as this slides in, you see it looks like nothing's happening. Let me switch back to main camera. You see it looks like it did before, but if you go to wireframe, you see now there's actually individual pieces here. So what we can do now is cascade them, right? So we'll add a little bit of cascade, and now as these guys slide in, you see now the pieces fall in place one after the next. So right now it's starting off, it's going from left to right. Let's switch that to a reverse order, and then when they come into position, that'll look a little bit more interesting. If we add more cascade, that's going to increase the spacing between each one. There you go. The transition, the paths start looking a little odd at this point, but that's okay, because what it's doing at this spot right here, it's actually picking up the motion of the frame itself. So it really is correct. It just looks weird. If you look at that one little thing, you see how it sort of bumps out? So you see it's coming into position, and then right there it has settled into the frame, and now it's picking up the motion of the frame itself. So it looks odd, but it's still actually okay. So there we go. So now they're all falling into position, and then of course we can do other more interesting things. So as they're falling in like this, I'm going to turn off this sync button. Notice that with the sync button on, every time I make a little change like that, it jumps back to the beginning of the pose. So I want to see what happens about right here. So I'll turn off the sync button, and now what I can do is adjust the there we go. Let's do this. Okay. So if we do this, then as they're falling into position, there we go. We get that sort of a look, which is way more interesting. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's really about all we have to talk about at this point. We've gotten a really cool motion. We've parented one thing to the next, and then we've done this overlapping cascade thing. The last thing probably is going to be how to get the picture to spread across. But when you're using fragmentation, that's pretty much done for you. So there's really nothing else special to talk about right here. Just create the material and drop it on. If you drop it on before you set up the fragmentation, you literally don't have to do anything else. If you want, you can come over here and then click this button to select all the individual fragments, and then go here to select this in the materials docs, and then right here this will tell you the kind of mapping that's being used. A lot of times it'll default to this mapping, which is UV fit, which is pretty much the exact same as front, except it also spreads things around the sides. So you may want to switch over to front. You do that, and it's going to say, do you want to spread this mapping across all the selected objects? If you select no, let me show you what happens. You get repeats. Got it? So that is probably not what you're going to be wanting. I'll hit reset there, and then select front again, and this time say yes. Now the reason why it's giving you that yes is because they're all selected. Remember, it's spread this map across all selected objects. That's why we clicked this button right there, so that we could select all the pieces inside that fragment, all the pieces that are fragmented. So we say yes, it spreads it across the whole thing, and you're done. So at this point now you'll see it's actually spreading the map across the front face of that picture. So when we come in really tight, you see it's actually smearing it based upon the last little bit of pixel color that was on that edge, which is also another cool look. But you see when they play that all back, it ends up looking like this. So there you go. I've been talking nonstop, but I hope you get the idea. It's actually super easy and super cool. You can use this with so many things, you just can't believe it. So again, the trick is to set up a null parent using the animation controls. Click right there. You select the pose, and you select the parent that you want from here, and this one too from there as well. Okay, and that's how you do it. So there you go. Go have some fun with multi-object parenting, fragmentation, cascade, everything all sort of rolled into one in this super easy 3-track setup.